Welcome to another critical conversation. This time we are dealing with COVID-19 conversations and we're looking at exploring the educational impact. I'm Wanda L. Scott and I'm excited to have you join us on another journey of critical conversations. Today I am welcoming and interviewing Stacia Freeman. Stacia?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And we have some quick questions. We want to know how you have been impacted. You and your family have been impacted by COVID-19 in this previous semester. We know that the world has been impacted in so many different areas, but we want to document and journal the journey of individuals. So can you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name's Stacia. I'm a mother. I have 4 children that are still school age and 4 children that are not in high school or, lower education. They're in college. And two are out. So I have 8 children total. And then I'm a small business owner. I run a nonprofit. We're about a $250,000 to $270,000 organization, and work full time, sometimes more than full time, because that's the way it is with nonprofit work. I've been in nonprofit leadership for about 16 years. And I've been a mother for 25. So a little bit about me and what I've got going on. I'm married, live in Nashville.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So thinking about the children who are school age and your life as a business owner running a nonprofit, what has been the impact?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for me has been that I was used to working, pretty much organizing my day around my children's day for the most part. And once they were home all the time, it had a huge impact on my ability to work and get things done. That was the first thing. And the guilt that you feel for knowing that you need to go to work, and that that the work that you do is really important and that there's people depending on you, but also having that pull more so than ever before for being at home and being available to your children, especially because initially with COVID, when we went into lockdown in March, there were a lot of issues with technical issues and the kids not being used to online learning and not having the discipline for it. And so from March to June, I pretty much worked from home. But then in June, we started being able to go to meetings again and things like that. Of course, they weren't really in school by then. But once it started again in the fall, I was working again and needing to be at my office, or, we do a lot of work in the court, go to court, and then worrying about what if my kid's computer shuts down? What if he gets stuck and can't, log on, or what if he's not doing it like he should? I have a 10-year-old and a almost 12-year-old boy, and boys aren't just they're very active. And so there's that pull for them to want to run outside and play in the front yard, or to want to jump on a video game. And when you're not there, and you can't say like, no, you can't do that. The other thing is, I've seen the toll that it's taken on my children, just being expected to sit and attend for these long periods of time, even though they're trying to give them breaks. When a kid is out of the routine, so they're doing school and then they're able to go and watch TV for 30 minutes or to go for a walk around the block, it's hard then for them to turn that off and turn back on an educational brain. So, we've seen a lot of struggles with that. I got a truancy letter on one of my kids.
Wow.
And, I was and so I was like, okay, this is not good at all. And I don't even know how they're keeping up with a lot of that, because I can honestly say there's been a lot of login problems. Like, we've switched the computer out. 2 of my kids have computers that were given to them by the school, and then my older son and my older daughter have their own computers. But the school issued computers were a problem, and even my son with his own personal computers had some problems with the network. So there's been a fair amount, and I give them a lot of grace because they didn't see this coming either. And this isn't how teachers want to teach. And so it's not ideal for any of us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that candid perspective and the questions around truancy and getting a truancy letter. That's, that's interesting. And I'm actually going to interview some some teachers, so they can probably give us some insight on that. But hardware issues, technology is always a challenge. And like you said, we know that this was a surprise to the teachers as well. So thank you for that comment, but for being candid about that impact, of the expectations of your 10-year-old, of your children, period.
Right. Yeah. It's also super easy for them to get behind. And it's like once they get behind, we had this when it first started, like they would go to their classes and then there would be all this work that they had to go to different files to find. And I didn't know because I've never done this before. So then they got so far behind that I ended up having to hire a tutor to come in and try to dig them out of that. And, I think I was paying like $250, $300 a week for a tutor. So what do families do that can't afford that at all? It puts them at a huge disadvantage. And, my kids were not getting the grades and the marks that we were accustomed to seeing as parents. So we had to give them a lot of grace for that, recognizing that, to struggle. I have a daughter that's a senior. And, I think about when I started working from home, I worked in medical sales when I was young and I worked from home, and I've worked from home pretty much most of my career. It takes getting used to learn to manage your time. And I think that's what a lot of our kids are doing. They're getting used to working from home.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned something about your children and their grades, being impacted by the virtual environment, figuring out how to do school from home. Can you talk to me? Has stress played a factor in any of this, do you think, for your children?
I think for all of us. At first, because when we get stressed, we act out of that stress. I think my first inclination was to be like, this is what we're going to do. And you are going to do this, and you're not going to have your phone, and and then that stress was adding so much more emotional stress to our family that I had to kind of have a talk with myself and say, I'm going to let some of that go, because I could feel like the stress of my kids, like almost not wanting me around because I was so stressed about, you're going to flunk out and, what are we going to do? You're going to be 13 and then be in 5th grade. This is not going to be good. I saw a meme where this guy with a full grown beard is riding like a child's bike to school, and it says me going back to finish 8th grade. It's like a 50-year-old man. And I could totally relate to that because that's how I felt, a lot of just stress and angst over what if I do fail? What if I can't be successful? Well, I don't know how to do this. How do I ask? And also, like, for my son that's in 5th grade, in Nashville, 5th grade is middle school. So he was going to a new school with new kids, but he's never been physically. So he was going to online school with kids some of them he didn't know. So there was the stress about that too, like not wanting to ask a question or not wanting to appear like you didn't know because you didn't want to be judged based on that. That's just middle school is just a really tricky time for kids' self-esteem. So that's been another kind of navigating point that we've had to figure out as we're going forward.
Excellent. So do you think moving forward, looking at the upcoming semester, do you feel like your children are in a better space to really retain what they're learning in school and have a better chance with their grades? Talk to me about that.
I think my older kids have gotten a handle on it. Like I have a 9th grader and a 12th grader. And it's sad for my 12th grader. She's doing hybrid learning. So 3 days a week on the computer and then 2 days a week they go in, which has been really a little better. They're older and so more able to multitask. Their frontal lobe is developing more. And so they've kind of gotten a handle on it. I really feel like my 4th grader and my 5th grader, this has been detrimental to their learning, that whenever they do go back to school, there will be a lot of catch up that has to be played. I gave up on like being stressed about making sure they had A's, and just started being focused on they were showing up, they knew how to check the files, they were getting their work done. And I just decided like it's not reasonable for the school system to expect families to pay, you know, $150 to $300 a week for a tutor. It's why like my kids are in, 3 of my kids are in public school and 1 of my children is in private school. It's why a lot of families have left public education and gone to private school. I mean, I know that the middle school that my son's in, I had to talk with his principal because I said, my choice right here is to continue to work and to allow my child to suffer because I'm not there 24/7 standing over him. And that's what it's going to take, is me literally like sitting with him while he's on the computer, and quit my job. Like that's kind of my choice. And he's like, don't do that. Like, you know, things are going to get better. Cause at that point he thought that everyone was going to go back to school. I think that I kind of decided like right now, this is a learning experience for all of us. And I'm not going to sweat the grades and the things like that. I'm going to look at it like a partnership between education and families to figure out how to do what, you know, what's best for my kid, because I had to really consider the emotional impact that it was having. But I really worry that my 4th grader and my 5th grader won't be able to catch up. It's concerning.
Wow. Well, thank you for that very candid concern. And I know that you are not alone in feeling that way. I would probably say at least 50%, and it's probably a lot more than that, of parents have concerns that way. And we have much to do to figure out this educational journey for our children and for us as adults and for you parents, in how to make that balance, because we're starting again all over the country, mostly this week. So thank you, Stacia, for your closing thoughts, for sharing about your educational journey. I just want to say thank you for joining us for another critical conversation around COVID-19 and its impact on education. Stay tuned for more interviews, more candid viewpoints from everyday people